Hello, folks. It's Hooves of Doom with another battle report between the Vampire Counts, commanded by my wife, and myself playing Beastmen. So we rolled for the scenario, and we got. I made this like chart system for scenarios. Apparently, I just love charts, and this was ambushed at the Cursed Temple. This is from the Seraphon Battle Tomb. And, technically it's for specifically the Seraphon, but we just changed around the keywords. It doesn't really matter. One side's the attacker or the acolytes, the other side is defending. And you're supposed to be protecting this cursed temple and the arcane knowledge that's stored within from the invading army. So, like most of these battle plans, there are two unique command abilities. The Acolytes, which in this case, that's the Vampire Count. She has an ability that for next hero phase, you can pick a friendly unit within 3 inches. And each time he suffers a wound or mortal wound, roll dice, and on 2 or more, the friendly unit that you nominated takes the wound instead. So it's like it passes off the wound. So this scenario is dependent on the characters living and getting to the temple and taking that knowledge. So if you can use the like a big unit of zombies or skeletons as a shield, it's not a bad command ability. And then the Seraphon, or myself as Beastman, have an ability where called Driving Force, where your warriors are willing to drive the enemy back at any cost. In your hero phase, you may choose to roll dice for any enemy units that are within 3 inches of one of your units. Your opponent must move each model in the unit that many inches away from the center of the battlefield. Now, it's an interesting idea, but I don't really understand quite how it works, simply because you push them away from the center. So during the battle, my forces are surrounding the temple, and they're really getting besieged, and it would have been nice to push them back, which is how I understood this. But if I push them away from the center, it's almost as if the wording's wrong, and it should be push them towards the center. Anyways, I don't really. If anyone has any idea of how that really should work, let me know if you've played this or whatnot. So, the setup is pretty interesting. So the Cursed Temples in the middle is right next to the board edge, but in the middle of the lawn table edge. So the defender kind of deploys in an 18-inch bubble around the Cursed Temple. The attacker or acolyte has the other half of the table. The setup is interesting because most of the defender's army is kind of off table. It's almost like reserves, but they're really coming in out of like they're there, but they're kind of cloaked. And you set up 2 units, but you set up 3 models from each unit anywhere within that 18-inch bubble, and then the acolyte deploys their entire army, and then you can select one of those 3 models to then deploy the rest of the unit around them. So you have a general idea of in 3 different locations for each unit where they're going to deploy, but not perfect. And I probably could have done it a bit better. So the first turn goes to the acolyte. The second turn, the defender's army moves on, and they move on 6 inches. They have to be, or rather, within 6 inches of the edge and not within 9 inches of the enemy. So they're almost in a position to kind of surround the enemy if they move forward. There's another twist in the battle insofar as there are these vengeful spirits that drop rocks or parts of the temple are not properly constructed and could potentially break off and hit, because we're supposed to be in this giant massive underground type of structure. So there's like a big roof over above us, and the rocks can come down. And if we roll for initiative for each round, and the total is an 8, we each pick 3 units, and you take D3 mortal wounds. Kind of an interesting mechanic. And so here's how the victory conditions work. For the Acolyte, the terrain feature touching the center of the southern edge marks the resting place of the ancient knowledge sought by the Acolyte. If the Acolyte has any heroes within 1 inch of the terrain feature in their hero phase, they can attempt to recover this lost knowledge. Roll dice, add 1 to the result for each hero the Acolyte has within 1 inch of the terrain feature. If the result is 7 or higher, one of those heroes chosen by the Acolyte is successful and claims their prize. So if you only have one character within 1 inch and you want to try to grab the artifact, you need to roll a 6. If the hero does so, it cannot move in the following movement phase. If the hero that claimed the prize is not within 6 inches of any enemy models at the end of the Acolyte's or any of the Acolyte's turns, they slip away into the darkness. And if the Acolyte slips into the darkness, they win a major victory. If the prize has not been claimed by the end of the 5th battle round, the defender wins a major victory. If the hero that claimed the prize is slain, or is still on the battlefield at the end of the 5th battle round, it's a minor victory for the defender. So, kind of an interesting scenario. It's somewhat like the ritual, but the odds of grabbing it are not as great. One thing we've decided to do is roll for the scenario first, and then design the army. So, I told her what the victory conditions was, and she came back with a little bit of a heavy character army, because you want to get, if possible, 2 or 3 characters around that and potentially grab it fairly easily, because if you have 3 characters, the odds are a 50-50 chance you're going to grab it, and each of the characters rolls, so that's really good. Now there's a catch. Because she won the last game with a major victory, she had a triumph, and so we gave her the triumph. She rolled on the chart and she got blessed, and that means she can change the result of any single dice to the result of your choosing during the battle, which is crucial in this one. So yeah, that's a nice little advantage for her. So if she hasn't used that by the time she gets to the temple, she can just say, I rolled a 6. Or, roll and change it to a 6 and grab the objective with a single character. So let's look at setup and deployment. So, like I said, the deployment's a little bit weird. But basically, after we resolved my little hidden deployment thingy with the 3 models, the Gores ended up in the middle, and the Raiders are off to the side. So let me just quickly go over the armies real quick. She's using Count Manfred, a vampire lord, which is Neferata, and her little cat. I think the cat's name is Bassett or something. Anyway, so she's using that as just a generic vampire lord. Then she has Heinrich Himmler, White King with Infernal Standard, Vargulf, 20 Skeletons, 10 Black Knights, 20 Graveguard, and 1 Mortis Engine. And they were kind of deployed very much straight across the board on the other side there, as you can see. And my army is Gorthor the Beast Lord. He's my general. I got a Wargore Standard Bearer, a Great Bray Shaman, 30 Gores, 20 Ungor Raiders, a Tuskor Chariot, 5 Centigores, 10 Bestigores, and then I needed some more painted models. I have more Beastmen, but they're unpainted, so I decided I'll do a Demon Alliance with my Slaanesh. So I have a Secret Chariot of Slaanesh, a Herald of Slaanesh, 3 Fiends of Slaanesh, and 15 Demonettes of Slaanesh. And just before the battle, the secret chariot was like on a table, and my dog ran by and it knocked it flying and broke it into like 5 pieces. Um, so he's not getting any milk bones anytime soon, let me tell you. But I put the chariot back together, and it's ready to go in this. So the gore, as I said, are right in front of the arcane temple or cursed temple, and then the Ungor raiders off to the side. So it's a bit stark, especially since the acolyte or the vampire counts in this case always get the first turn, and they're not that far away from me, so it's a little bit rough. The trees were all deadly, and the hills were all arcane. That's just how it rolled out. I don't think that was a factor in the game, though. So, first round to the vampire counts. So the first thing she did was use Manfred's command ability on the skeletons that allows him to reroll ones on the hit and wound rolls. And very heavy magic army. I think Manfred and Heinrich can both cast 2 spells. All 3 of her characters attempted to summon another Vargolf. And thankfully they failed, which is awesome. Man, I hate Vargolfs at this point. And so Manfred put a Mystic Shield on himself, and Heinrich did the same, just to kind of give those characters a little bit more protection. And then the whole army moved forward to engage those horrible beastmen that are protecting the cursed temple. And during the charge phase, the Black Knights and Mortis Engine charged straight into the Gores, and the Vargolf tried to charge the Ungors, but failed, thankfully. And the Graveguard also didn't quite manage to make its charge. So that was good. And then the Black Knights only killed 2 Gores in close combat, which is fantastic. I made quite a number of saves, and Gores, they have like a 5+ save naturally, and my whole unit has shield, so they're at a pretty decent like little save for Gores, considering last edition they had like 0. So my Gores attacked back. I rolled for Anarchy and Mayhem. That's their special ability that gives them +1 to wound and a possibility of an extra attack if they roll a 6. And of course, they rolled a 6. Happens so frequently in this game, to be honest. And so they killed 4 Black Knights and put a wound on the Mortis Engine before the Mortis Engine killed 2 more Gores. So very good for the Gores in general. And but unfortunately, of course, during the Battle Shock phase, I rolled a 6, and 5 Gores ran away naturally. And then the Beastmen turn. So my rest of my army comes out of a darkness where they've been hiding, and you get lots of reinforcements. So the whole army gets deployed across the board, 6 inches within 6 inches of the table edge, 9 inches away from the enemy. And they can move and charge. There's no restriction on that once they come on. So thankfully, because you're going to probably get hit hard that first turn. So you need to kind of do well in the second, or rather on your turn in the first round. So Gorthor used his command ability, Blood-Soaked Champion. That's +1 to hit and roll to charge and so on and so forth. And the Shaman put Mystic Shield on Gorthor. And I moved, you can come on any table edge as long as you're within 6 inches. So I moved the Centaurs and Secret Chariot came on her table edge and went after the lone vampire back there. And so I'm setting up all these reinforcements, and my wife wasn't too impressed. She was kind of whimpering at that point. Then the Raiders shot the Vargolf and put 3 wounds. The Secret Chariot charged the Vampire Lord as I had planned. The Fiends went after the Vargolf, and Gorthor and the chariot went after the Mortis engine. And so, what happened with the combat? The Mortis engine and the Tuskgor chariot, it did 4 mortal wounds on the chariot, which was absolutely horrible. The Gors and the Black Knights, again, I got the Anarchy with 6+, and they put 9 wounds on them. Gors are actually not that bad, to be honest. And then the Vampire versus the chariot, I put 5 damage on the chariot, which was absolutely horrible. And I put 2 wounds on the Vampire in return. The Vargal from the Fiends, it put 9 wounds on the Fiends, which I was not too thrilled with. And then it healed up 3 wounds, which is great. I hate Vargals. Gorthor put 5 wounds in the Mortis engine. But unfortunately she made... she made quite a number of saves. That was the 5 wounds, I think, included, like, he does D3 wounds on the charge, mortal wounds on the charge. So it wasn't that great. And then the Black Knights killed 2 more Gors. And then the Tuskgor chariot that had gotten mauled by the Mortis engine at the beginning of the round fluffed all of its attacks. My wife was quite happy about that. And battle shock was not an issue this turn. No additional casualties. So round 2 started off, and we tried to roll for initiative. We rolled it was like tied like 3 times, and we're each like worried about like the potential of rocks coming from the roof and falling on our units. Never rolled the 8 though, so that was fine, and she won. And so Manfred used his command ability on the skeletons again. He summoned 10 more skeletons, and Heinrich has this like teleportation ability where he can kind of disappear and then reappear. I think you have to roll for the distance. But anyways, he puffed away and then reappeared 11 inches further away. It's not that bad of a command ability, because it happens just in the hero phase, and then you can cast and do everything else. And then the Vampire Lord summoned a Vargolf, of course. Ugh. And Heinrich failed to summon more Black Knights, so he decided to cast for Graveguard, and that was successful. And then the Mortis engine during the hero phase unleashed its arcane ability, the area of effect ability that it has. Went off for 16 inches. This was ridiculous. It killed a Gore, it killed a Bestigor, killed 3 Demonettes, put 3 wounds on Gorthor, 2 wounds on the Shaman, killed off the other chariot, put a wound on the Wargore, 1 wound on the Herald of Slaanesh, and it healed a Black Knight and 2 wounds on the Mortis engine itself. It's like, and then it wailed. And I think that's an AoE as well, because it killed, it put 2 wounds on the Gores, and it killed 3 Bestigors, which was absolutely horrible. And then the Black Knight unit resurrected 2 Black Knights that had been killed because of its standard during the hero phase. So that was a pretty good hero phase for her. And the Graveguard kind of swung over onto the flank and moved towards the Bestigors. The skeletons moved forward, and Manfred did as well. And then they charged into the Demonettes. The Graveguard charged against the Bestigors. And so Manfred kills, in the close combat phase, he kills 2 Demonettes. The Bestigors... because I wanted to go after that and try to kill as many of those Graveguards as I can. They kill 5, which isn't too bad, but not great. The Vampire Lord killed the chariot and then healed itself up a wound, which was horrible. The Demonettes versus the Skeletons, they killed 6. The Mortis Engine tried to attack Gorthor and absolutely fluffed all of its attacks, which is great because I absolutely need Gorthor to survive for a while. And he has that really good ability that can heal himself up every turn a bit. I love Gorthor. And so the Gors went after the Black Knights. They killed 1. The Vargolf and Fiends kind of duked it out, but I don't think much really happened. The Fiends put 2 wounds on the Vargolf. I think the Vargolf must have done a wound or something on the Fiends. And Gorthor again attacked the Mortis Engine. Didn't do so well again. He only put 2 wounds on the stupid thing. And the Black Knights killed 3 Gors. And then the Graveguard went after the best of Gors to kill 4. And the Skeletons versus the Demonettes weren't too successful. And then the Battle Shock, I lost 7 Gors. That's like the worst thing about them. Bravery of 5 is just so horrible. And then 2 Bestigors ran off. So during the Beastman phase, I thought, okay, things aren't going so well. You know, we first come on the board, I was like, yes, this is gonna rock. And then, man, the combats did not go my way. So I had like then my ace up my sleeve. She's bringing on all these units with magic, and I was thinking, oh, you know what? I got a Chaos General here. I'm gonna call upon the Chaos Gods and allow them to bring me additional reinforcements, right, in the time of war rules. And I was like, I had that kind of up my sleeve, and I was thinking that, I'm gonna really get her with this. I'm gonna bring on a whole bunch of more demons, and it's gonna be great. And then I looked at the time of war rules, and it needs to be within 9 inches of your general, and more than 9 inches away from the enemy. So there's like no way I could possibly do it. There's just not enough room, and I'm right in combat. I would have to retreat, and even if I retreated, there was no room to do it. Horrible. So there is a downside to that ability. So the Shaman summoned 10 Demonettes. He's a Chaos Wizard. Actually, maybe that is only Death Wizards. I'd have to look at that. No, it's just any Chaos Wizard. Yeah, so he was able to summon 10 Demonettes. Gorthor used the Blood-Soaked Champion on himself and everyone else within range. And then he healed himself up with his special ability. And the Shaman ran towards the building. The Wargor and Herald of Slaanesh moved to attack Manfred. I gotta kill him. He's close to the Cursed Temple. And the Ungor Raiders moved up towards the building as well, just to kind of get a bit closer, get them in range. The Raiders then shot at Manfred and put 3 wounds on him. The Demonettes against the Graveguard lawnballed their charge. They got, I think, they certainly got over the 9 inches required. So they got in there, which was great. I needed to tie those things up because I don't want them turning around and going after Gorthor or the Shaman. The Herald and Wargor both charged Manfred. The thing about the Wargor is, you want to plant the standard, but there wasn't enough Beastmen in range to really matter, and I needed him to be more in close combat, so I charged him in. The Demonettes against the Graveguard killed 7 of them, which was great. I absolutely needed that. Unfortunately, 1 was saved by the Infernal Standard. So the way that works is every time you lose a casualty within 9 inches, if it's not planted, you roll 6, and 1 is saved and not killed. Manfred utterly went after the Wargor and just absolutely kills him. Unfortunately, my poor little Wargor never got an attack off. And then the Demonettes on the Skeletons and Manfred, they killed 2 and put a wound on Manfred. I tried to put as many attacks as I could on the Manfred as I can because I need to stop, her characters for one thing, but I've also got to stop the fact that she can constantly cast so many times in a phase. It's ridiculous. And the The Mortis Engine attacked Gorthor, put a mortal wound and a regular wound. And then he got bonked on the head by the stupid a Corpse Master on the Mortis Engine. You know, that's like a 4-up to save or a 4 to hit, and then like a 3+ to wound. It does D3 damage, and naturally he failed his armor save and took 3 wounds from the stupid guy. And so the fiends on the Vargolf, they put 1 more wound. The Vampire versus the Cendagors, because the Cendagors had charged in and was attacking the Vampire at this point. Killed 1 and wounded another. The Gors put 5 wounds on the Black Knights. They're still doing really good. I was rolling really well for the Anarchy and Mayhem. And the Skeletons killed 3 Demonettes. The Cendagors tried to attack the Vampire Lord, and naturally she made all her saves, and then because she killed 1, she healed up, which was like, geez, come on. So, stupid Chariot and, a basic unit of those guys couldn't even kill or even do much to her. And the Black Knights killed a Gore. The Herald put all of her attacks against Manfred. I think she got like a couple extra attacks because of the additional rule of Slaanesh, where they get, if they roll 6, they get additional attacks. And it killed Manfred, which is great. And then the Vargolf killed the last fiend and healed up 3 wounds. Jeez. And Gorthor and the Mortis Engine, he put 3 more wounds in the Mortis Engine. It's now down 9 wounds. The Graveguard killed 7 Demonettes, which almost killed off that whole unit, which I brought on. And then the White King massacred the remaining Demonettes. Man ability again and healed himself up again. And the Shaman summoned another 10 Demonettes, which was great. Absolutely great. And then he moved further towards the tower. The Ungor Raiders then shot at Heinrich, but they could only put 1 wound on the guy, which was not so great. The Demonettes then attempted to charge the Graveguard again, but this time they failed, which was disappointing. It would have been great to get them in there. Gorthor finally killed the Mortis Engine off, and the Skeletons put a couple wounds on the Herald. The Cendagors absolutely fluffed all of their attacks again against the stupid Vampire Lord at the back. The Black Knights tried to attack the Gors, but all the armor saves were saved, and the Gors finished off the Black Knights, which is great. Those big units of Gors really can stay around for some time. And then the Herald and Demons killed 8 Skeletons, which is doing good. And Heinrich teleported towards the objective in the hero phase. That sneaky little devil. And then he used the Blessed Roll, of course, which is absolutely something I was dreading. And so Heinrich grabbed the objective, but he failed to cast Mystic Shield on himself. So he summoned 10 Graveguard instead and put them on the hill. The Vargolf and Skeletons that were summoned the previous turn kind of advanced on. And the Graveguard moved to attack Gorthor, which was something I was not looking forward to. The Vargolf failed to charge, which was great. But the Skeletons charged the Gors. And then the Graveguard charged Gorthor, which was not so great. And so, man, I forget what happened to Heinrich during the movement phase. I think he tried to move, but couldn't quite get away. He needs to get away within 4 inches. Oh, that's right. You can't move. After you grab the objective, that first turn, you cannot move for one turn. So they're kind of stuck there. So the Graveguard went after Gorthor, and right from behind, the poor guy, and he absolutely got eviscerated this time. Gorthor has a 4-up save, but you can't deal with that many Graveguard. And the Gores, man, I got the Anarchy off on roll of a 6 again. They killed two skeletons. The Vampire versus the Centaur killed off the wounded Centaur. And the Herald wiped out the remaining skeletons on that side. And of course, the Centaurs attacking the Vampire back absolutely woofed all their attacks once again. And then in round 4, she won the roll-off. Again, we were I think there was a couple ties in this one too, and again, we were kind of, anxious about getting that roll of 8 and getting a bunch of rocks dropped on her head. But thankfully it didn't happen. Unfortunately, though, she won the roll-off for the 4th round. And so Heinrich teleported with his, ability during the hero phase. He teleported 4 inches, then ran another 5, and then moved and ran. And so that made sure that he could outpace the Gores that were there by 6 inches, and he was good to go. So I couldn't prevent him from slipping away into the darkness, which is what the scenario is describing. And so he slips away, and she wins the game. That teleportation was very key, though, because I think, first off, she probably wouldn't have been able to get to the objective maybe as fast. But also just escaping, I would have had at least one round of maybe shooting with my Ungor Raiders against them, or maybe I could have pulled off something with the Herald, or maybe caught him up for another turn. And all I needed to do was hold him for one more round to the end of round 5. But unfortunately, it didn't happen, and Heinrich managed to escape. So she won another triumph, and the benefit for the next game is that her general has an extra wound. That's what she got on the chart. And man, our experience of Age of Sigmar has been really fun. The games have a real tendency to go back and forth. The first turn, I was terrified, and then I bring on all these my army comes on the board edge, and they all get to charge right in. And I'm like, yes, this is going to be great. I'm like, coming in from behind and coming on the sides. This is going to be terrific. And, so my wife's like all terrified. And then, the next phase after, things aren't going good. I'm like, oh man, I got to bring on some Chaos Demons. Unfortunately, it didn't work. But it really goes back and forth so frequently. I mean, had I gotten maybe that extra charge off with the Demonettes and held up that unit of Graveguard so that Gorthor hadn't died, or I probably would have been able to charge Heinrich at Gorthor, and things could have gone much differently. The game really goes back and forth very, very frequently, and it's a lot of fun because of that. And it just kind of reminds, like, we both loved playing 8th edition, but there were, we were talking about this afterwards, and there were a lot of games where we never really got past like turn 2 or 3 because maybe one person had like a really, really good combat phase and wiped out like the other person's general and their big unit, and you just kind of know by that point who's going to win. And we never have that sense in Age of Sigmar. There's still a feeling of dread, like, oh no, I'm going to lose, this is horrible. But then you can usually just turn it around. It has like a really weird capability to do that. So we've been really enjoying our games. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I think the hardest thing with making battle reports for Age of Sigmar is how do you describe the combat without just being a jumbled mass of kill this, kill this, kill this. It has some difficulty because it's so back and forth. but if you try to just do it, describe each combat from each side as it goes, then you kind of lose the strategic side of choosing the combat. So I'm not really sure how to resolve that. But in either case, guys, appreciate you guys listening in and hope you enjoyed it, and have a good one.